Hi everybody, my name is Blake Young. I have 6 years of ACT tutoring. I graduated from Harvard in 2022. I have a tutoring company with 30 employees, all from Harvard as well. And these are the best tips and tricks that I could give you to ace the ACT. We're talking never score below a 35 in the English section. Here we go. So the way I want you to think about the English exam is in terms of these two ideas. What are they? I and D. I stands for independent as an independent clause, and D stands for dependent. Cool beans, why does this matter? I want you to think about the ACT English section like a block of Legos. You can make magnificent works of art out of Legos, but each tiny little part constructs the whole. Similarly, sentences are comprised of what we call subjects and verbs. A subject is the part of the sentence that does the stuff. The subject would be like I, he, she. It's the person or the thing that does the action. And then the verb is the action itself. Cool beans. You're doing great. We're almost there. So we have our subjects. They're the person, place, or thing that does the action. And then we have the verbs that actually accomplish this behavior. And these two things combined form what's called an independent clause. Got it? Let's do a quick test, okay? I go to work, period. I. What's the verb? Go. To is what we call a preposition. But don't worry about that now. We'll talk about it later. Cool beans. So a very simple sentence for the ACT's purposes is just I go. That is technically correct. Why? Because it has a subject and a verb. A lot of people are going to try to tell you all sorts of other fancy stuff about independence and dependence. I've been doing this 6 years. Let me tell you, all that matters is we have a subject and a verb, okay? That'll get you all the way there on the ACT English. Now, let's talk about a dependent clause. What I want you to think about for a dependent clause is cannot stand on its own. When I teach classes, I ask people to give me examples of dependent clause, and they'll say, like, running around. That's a good example because who's running around? There's no subject. See how if we only have our action word and no subject, this is what's called a dependent clause. Why? Because it'll depend on this subject, which in this case is not there. Okay? So, recap. Independent clauses stand on their own. Dependent clauses, they need a buddy. They need that subject. Awesome, Blake, but why does this matter? Surely this matters. Yes, it does. The reason this matters is because there are rules for how you connect independent clauses with other independent clauses, and there are rules for how you connect dependent clauses to independent clauses, and there are rules for how you connect independent clauses to dependent clauses. Think of them as little Legos, or like a puzzle piece. If this puzzle piece looks like this, then they'll go together. That's my way of saying the way that you connect independent clauses to independent clauses must be like this, comma, and then FANBOYS. And by the way, what does FANBOYS stand for? It stands for and, nor, but, or, yet, so. Okay? So you have to have a comma FANBOYS, or a period capitalization, or a semicolon. That's our first high yield point of the day, okay? This is so important. If you memorize this, you're guaranteed to get 2 points on test day. Now, here's an Ivy tutoring tip. If I were to give you a question that says A, B, and C are these options, and then D is something else, what is the correct answer, and what type of question is it? I'll let you think for a second. If you see this on test day, you automatically know the answer is D, even if you don't even know the question. Why is that? Because for the ACT's purposes, it is the exact same as a semicolon. And so, since they're the exact same, they can't all be right, and therefore the answer is the remaining one, and the question is all of these except. See, it's like the Matrix after a while. The ACT is a silly game. If you follow along on this channel, I'll teach you guys how to look through the test and just blaze through the English section in minutes. You'll be like, oh, comma, coordinate conjunction, period capitalization, semicolon, all the same, connecting independent clauses, answer D, move on next. You don't even have to read the question stem. That's what's different about this channel compared to other ones. I've done this for 6 years straight. I've scored several 36s live on stream. I know this test in and out. I've been thinking about it every day for about 2 years now. And this is my attempt to make it super accessible to you. All right, so we've been talking about puzzle pieces and stuff. Now, the way that we connect our independence with our dependence is nothing. We just run them together. For example, independent clause, I fought. Dependent clause, how about during the war? See how this just blends right in? I fought during the war. Just a simple sentence, no pauses, no breaks needed. That's how you connect independence with dependence. And now hopefully it's making sense why I started out teaching you what these puzzle pieces are. Because if you think about the test in terms of these puzzle pieces, you'll start to recognize how they connect, and you'll never miss questions again. The last category that I want to show you is a dependent to an independent clause. Let's just flip this around. Notice how if you were to say like, during the war, I fought. See how there's a little bit of a pause if you say it that way? Well, that natural break is because the way that we connect these puzzle pieces is with a comma. The way we connect a dependent clause, which goes first, to an independent clause is with a comma. But wait, Blake, didn't you just say that? Well, what I said was, if we have the independent first, then we can just run into the dependent. If we have the dependent first, then we can just run into the independent, but we need a comma, okay? So the order matters, much in the same way that the order matters when you're putting a puzzle piece together. All right, so we got it. This is the most important stuff for the ACT English. This alone, 2 points on test day. Now up here, I've got some topics that I briefly want to cover. This first one is subject-verb agreement. All subject-verb agreement is that we have to make them agree with each other. When you think of the word dog, do you envision one dog or tons of dogs? Just one. Well, the reason that makes sense is because this is a singular subject. It's singular. There's one dog, okay? And for singular subjects, we add the S to the verb. Now, this is actually super simple. You don't have to overthink this one. Just say it out loud. The dog bark or the dog barks. The dog barks. It's simple for English speakers to know that. But that's the rule. Okay, so why is this sentence wrong? Well, singular subject, bark. That would only make sense if we added one thing to make this sentence perfect, an S, because that changes this to a plural subject, and now it's the dog's bark. Because if we just said the dog bark every day, you'd be like, what? Bro, you're missing an S there. Okay, so that's what we mean by subject-verb agreement. Some more examples would be like, the students study hard, not the students study hard. Okay, so here's a hard question that a lot of students miss. So students will miss this and they'll say, hey, Blake, you told me that beans is plural. And so we have to say like are, the beans are on the table, right? Doesn't it make sense to say the beans are on the shelf, right? And therefore, isn't this the right answer? No. Now let me teach you a trick that'll make this super duper clear. If you were to only have this part of the sentence, you'd be right. Beans are on the shelf is a totally fine independent clause. Why? Because this is our subject, this is our verb, this is our preposition. Ooh, fancy word. Preposition is what you do to an object in space. It's what you do with the triangle. You can go under the triangle, over the triangle, through the triangle, around the triangle, right? A preposition tells you how you are in relation to something, and it's like a dependent clause, okay? But that's not important right now. All you need to know is that this is a totally valid sentence. However, look at that. Verb is a singular verb, okay? And so what do we do? Which one is it? Which one's our subject? Well, if you're holding up a can of beans, then you're holding the can, not the beans themselves. It's the can that you're holding, and so the can is the subject. But a better way to think of this, in a way that not a lot of people know about. Why? Because I learned this from my ACT instructor 5 years ago, and he just figured this out, and I'm telling you this tip because it's so high yield. It'll save you so many points. Anytime you see a preposition, what do? All my ACT subscribers to my old channel will be screaming out loud right now, cross it out, okay? Let's do that. Let's cross out all the prepositions. Whoop, you're gone. Whoop, you're gone. Of beans, you're gone. Look at that. Look at how easy this is now. Other ACT tutors on YouTube do not know this trick. Look at how simple we've made it. We've crossed out all of the prepositions. Under the triangle, over the triangle, of the triangle, all of that stuff. Cross it out. It only serves to confuse you. The grammar is never contained in the preposition, so cross it out. Literally on test day, drive your pencil through the prepositions. They do not matter. And that will save you points on test day. And so now we look at it, a can is, not a can are. A can are good, mom. No, that's ridiculous, okay? So if we cross out the fluff, we cross out these prepositions, see how easy this test becomes. My goal is to make this seem like a joke to you guys. Like, oh, you got a 36 on the ACT? Oh yeah? You know puzzles, don't you? You know how to cross out, don't you? That's all it is, guys. I promise that's all it is. Why do I say this? Because I've seen students who've gone through our prep company, starting with 25s. What do they end up with in the English every single time I tutor them? A 34. I'm not saying you'll get to a 36 every time, because there are some tough questions, but a 34 is totally achievable. Totally. I see it time and time again. I worked at a prep program for any inner city youth who were struggling. They started out with 13s. They ended up with 28s in the English section. Why? Because it's just a game. It is literally as adding an S here, crossing out a preposition, putting together puzzle pieces. That's what my channel is all about, folks. So please like and subscribe. I don't want to make this video too long, but do you want another tip? All right, I'll give you another tip, but only if you watch to the end. Let's put my cinematic camera back on. The ACT is a big dog with a big bark and no bite. Let's talk about consistent verb tense. If I were to ask you, is it she walked into the room and sat down or she walked into the room and sits down? Well, anytime you see this ed, almost every time you see the ed, it's called the past participle. This is just your past tense. She walked. So when I say consistent verb tense, if you do it here, you do it there. Which one's more past tense, to sit or sat? Well, the past tense is sat. Therefore, that's the correct answer. Boom. Easy. Now check this out. Let's make it a little more complicated, but still manageable. He studies, that's present tense, every night. And takes, that's also present. So check. Boom, we're good. How about they had finished? So had finished is what we call past perfect. That's an action completed before another past action. So before anything else, they had finished. All right. And then started, that is simple past. That's the later action. So why does this work? Well, past perfect, had finished, shows what happened first, and then simple past shows what happens next. So it's very logical. These guys are consistent with each other. They had finished when the movie started. All right, now let's look at an incorrect, and you'll see this sounds wrong. He was running and jumped. Well, that's past tense with your present. You can't mix them, okay? The past goes with the past. These guys both in the present. These guys are changing things up. You're not a time traveler on the ACT. So I tell my students, you are not Marty McFly. You do not time travel on the ACT. You're not Hermione Granger. No time traveling. Oh yeah. All right, let's end with our last subjects of pronoun agreement and who, whom, and we're good for the day. Pronoun. A pronoun must match its noun in number and person. Each is singular, and so you have to use his or her. And this is the most commonly missed type of question in the English section. This sentence right here is wrong. Why? Each student brought their book. What do we say about each? It's singular. And so it has to be their, because that's plural. This is all about matching, guys. Getting a 36 on the ACT is all about matching. You match, you cross out prepositions, you follow my YouTube channel, I will get you there. We can make it to a 36 in the English section, for sure. Clarity is correct. On the ACT, what I want you to remember is clarity is correct. I have other sayings that are really important, like redundancy is wrong, but we'll get to those in another video. Right now, we're going to end on this topic of who versus whom, and I'll let you guys go free. All right, so what's the rule? Well, the fancy schmancy rule is who is for when it's the subject. It's the one that does the action. And whom is when it's the object that receives the action. That's it. That's the rule. But I don't like that. It's confusing. Let's make it simple. What we do, we replace it with he or she. And if it makes sense, we use who. Or we can replace it with him and her. And if it makes sense, we use whom. So, for example, if you were to ask, who's calling? You would say blank is calling. Would you say him is calling? No. And therefore, it's not whom. It's going to be who. The answer is who is calling, not whom is calling. Here's another example. To whom did you give the book? I gave the book to him. And so what does that mean? We use whom. So anytime you see him, you think whom. Done. Easy. Whom are you texting? You'd say, I am texting him or her. And therefore, you use whom. Anytime you use whom, you can answer with him. And that's helpful because the M there is common between the two of them. Who wrote the letter? Him wrote the letter? No, he wrote the letter. And therefore, it's going to be who is correct. You would not say whom wrote the letter. Everybody overcomplicates this. ACT tutors are so bad at teaching this. Hopefully this makes total sense to you now. If you guys support the mission, what we're doing here at IB Tutoring, please like and subscribe. On my channel before it was deleted, we had over 1,500 subscribers. ACT copyright striked our channel because honestly, we were too good at teaching the test. We had explanations for every exam and we were annotating them live for our students. They didn't like that. Our tips are good on this channel. I've personally helped hundreds of ACT students reach the score of their dreams, and I'm excited to help you too. Just like and subscribe and you'll see our content continue to be put out in the next couple of months. You got this. You can ace this test. We'll see you in the next video.